for joining us today. This is the first one of these that we've done. As you can see, Lockdown Learning's number one. My name's Andrew Clark. I'm National Sports and Aquatics Manager for GLL, which is the parent company of Better, who run leisure centres across the UK, and the sort of largest operator of public swimming pools in the UK. We're a social enterprise, so non-for-profit company. So you can imagine it's very tough times that we're finding ourselves in 2020. But it's been amazing the way that the feedback that we've had from swimmers when we did get to reopen first time round. So we appreciate all your support. We're looking forward to welcoming people back on the 3rd of December as well. Fingers crossed that we can continue to do so. And we thought we'd based on some feedback we had from customers previously, that they wanted a bit more advice and guidance on what to do with this period of time where we don't have access to swimming pools. And it is a tough one because we know other sports, you can recreate your cycle, you can go out running, you can get your hands on some tins and jars to recreate your weight training sessions, but we can't really do that without a swimming pool. But I'm sure I'm going to hear otherwise from our panelists today. So I'm really pleased to have some great speakers today. First and foremost, if you could just show the agenda, Andrew, that'd be great. We are going to hand over to Duncan Goodhew in a second. Duncan Goodhew, Olympic gold medalist, Mr. Swimming all round. He's a great personality, and I very much enjoyed his videos that he shared during the first lockdown, coming live from his bathtub. So that was, I'm sure Duncan will give us some insight into those as well. We've got multiple world champion Keri-anne Payne, who since retiring from swimming not only has become a mum, but has also set up several businesses to look and focus on getting more people swimming and more people swimming better, and she'll give some insight into that. We've got Andrew Taylor, who is Better's national swimming tutor. He's a qualified coach, but he's great at these types of insight of where to go online to look for inspiration. And we've got someone who's been involved for decades in swimming event management. So Diccon Loy, founder of Marathon Swims, is going to join us as well. If you do have questions, pop them in the Q&A section. We'll do our best to answer those. Myself and Andrew will keep an eye on those. But without further ado, I'll hand over to Duncan. So thank you for joining us, Duncan.
Andrew, thank you very much for that wonderful introduction. And thanks a lot for the task. Swimming, as we all know, we love it. It's just this incredible sport. You know, you dive into this water and you're weightless. Astronauts train in it, you know, and you're lying down. When you breathe, you've got to displace the water and all the weight, and we know how heavy the water is. So actually displacing that water as you breathe is quite difficult and very different from anything else. As we swim, we've got the pressure on of the water on all our capillaries, so you have a compression of impact on the body. So the circulation is very different from anything else. We know from a lot of studies that it produces nice supple muscles with great endurance and great strength. And you're asking, Duncan, how do I do it outside of the water? Thanks, Andrew. It is a massive task, but I've raised the task before. For the older ones of you out there, you may remember Pebble Mill 1 with Anne Diamond and Nick Owen. Well, I was invited there to teach Nick Owen live on television how to swim breaststroke outside of the water. And he was lying on a stool trying to swim breaststroke with me teaching him in the middle of the studio. If that's not bizarre enough, I was asked by a radio program to teach swimming and coach swimming on radio. So I'm kind of raising to the challenge here, but I have a feeling I'm destined to fail to a certain degree. As you said, Andrew, Swimathon did ask me to put out some videos because it's a burning question for anybody who swims. Is how do you manage with this period of dryness? And I must say I lie in the bath for a long period of time to make sure I don't turn to dust. So I keep my hydration up. But that whole question of how do you manage it, and the first thing I thought about, well, you know, over my swimming career, we've used a lot of different weight training, but the gyms are closed. We have used swim bench, but do I really want this long swim bench sitting around my flats all year round? Not really. So the question came to, what am I trying to achieve in my land training to kind of keep the edge, keep things going? And I suppose looking at it, you've got your CV, you know, cardiovascular fitness, and I know Keri-anne's going to cover some of that. And almost anything you do, there's cross-training benefits. You know, a lot of my training, a lot of training of current swimmers are outside of the water. So the things you do outside of the water will tip into the water too. So there's good news. You can do stuff that's going to make a difference. The next thing is suppleness. Well, we know we can do stretching. I'll come back to that. And then there's strength. And strength is the one where I decided for Swimathon's purposes to focus on, because there are specific muscle groups that you use when you swim that you don't tend to use very often elsewhere. And it's how do you keep those just turning over? How do you keep the bulk of them still there? So when you return, you can return a little bit more quickly than you would do normally. And one piece of equipment that's really, really easy, and I'm sure some of you use them, are the tubes. If you buy it you can get these anywhere. They're just a little elastic band, and you just get a little bag handle. This is just a handle of a sports bag, and you can loop it round and tie it, and you can clip this to, say, above the door. So it clips round, close the door, so it's nice and secure. And suddenly you've got a band that you can start stretching, and you can start to imitate the stroke movement, whether it's freestyle here, there, or whether it's breaststroke, which is a bit more difficult in the screen, which is a more movement here. So you can start to simulate those movements. And if you go to Facebook, Swimathon Facebook, you'll find a range of videos I've started, what I put up in the last lockdown, that starts to look how you can use those elastic bands. And little tips like, if you're fixing it to a doorknob, fix it to the doorknob the other side of the door, so the doorknob doesn't often hit you and lock you into the room. These bands will give you specific strength, and you can work around each of the strokes and find little areas where you can work out a bit. Now with this strength, I kind of worked on it and thought, well, actually, what about people who don't want to use the bands? Is there anything else we can do? So there's very simple exercises you can do, and one of them is, if all of you now put your hands up above you. Come on, don't be shy. I know you can do this. Okay, up there. Now just pretend to pull freestyle down here as you're doing it, and you're resisting with one hand and pushing down with the other. So you're resisting with the bottom hand and just pushing down. Now, obviously, if we were doing this standing up, then you get a wider range. And as you do it, you can increase the strength you're using. And it's a very simple exercise you can do anywhere you like. And I built on this and thought, well, isometric training is quite good. I mean, it's not as effective. You're not running it through the whole range of muscles, but I'll use an example. Push your chair back a little bit here. Put your hand on your table in front of you. Okay, let's get in the swimming position here. And just push down on your desk. I hope it's a very safe desk, because the strength you're going to generate might break it. And you just push down on the desk hard. And the harder you push, obviously, the harder you're moving the muscle. Now notice that I move my shoulder back, so I'm getting into a much more swimming-like pose. And also I'm pressing my arm forward on the desk. Now, come on, guys. I see some of you being shy. You're not all doing this. Now, as you're doing this, you can actually push and then just stand up a little bit, and you're getting a little bit of the range of movement that you can take through the swimming. And again, this another simple little exercise, I won't do it on the desk here, but you can do it on the desk, is a dip. Your triceps are not being worked out very much, but yet they're the finish of the freestyle. Here we go. Just a simple chair dip here will help, just specifically working particular muscles. Now, as you go through those, work them to exhaust the muscle. And in that way, you're just keeping a memory of what the work on that muscle group is. And the videos on the Swimathon Facebook a site will go through each of those. For instance, breaststroke, you can do 1 or 2 exercises that will keep the little breaststroke muscle, you know, that little one that stands out in the front of your knee, just in shape. So when you go back, it's not going to be such a big ask to get it going again. Now, I got a bit extreme about this, because somewhere in my past, somebody said something that just hooked in my mind. And you know how that happens sometimes, that something just, it's an idea that you just can't quite shake. And the idea was, if you haven't stretched before getting out of bed, then it's too late. And I thought, I'm in lockdown. And, you know, I'd started, you know, doing a little bit of stretching before I got up, because I kind of remember when I was a kid, I always used to get up and go, you know, do all this like this. And you watch a cat in the morning, the first thing they do, they wake up and they give themselves a stretch. And I thought, well, I'll give this a go. And my body really liked it. So I started a routine from when I woke up in the morning. And it started with, you know, my feet. So if you're a breaststroke, you're getting your feet ready and moving round. And I worked up through my body, getting a really nice stretch. And again, the routine is on the Swimathon Facebook website. If you want to go through that, there are, I think, 8 short videos that you can build one on top of the other. Because stretching is incredibly important, because what you're going to be doing is exercise that you normally don't do, and your muscles will get tight, particularly if you're doing them to exhaustion like I'm suggesting. And throughout this, you've got to keep your flexibility going, because when you get back in the water, of course, you're going to need that flexibility. And the final bit that when you go through, you'll see that I focus on is the core. And swimming is really a core-based sport, because everything you're doing, you're holding your body at full stretch, and the power, whether it's breaststroke, backstroke, is coming right across your body as it comes right across. So I would really strongly suggest that you do a fair amount of core strength, and I'm sure Keri-anne will cover some of those. But there's a particular one I really enjoy, which is lying on your back with your hands straight up in front of you, and your knees in a 90-degree position, and you're just rotating across your body. So literally, if I'm on my back here, you're just putting one arm and one leg back, and you're bringing them both up together. And that way, it's working in a similar way as you would be on freestyle. You're pulling and you're pushing with the opposite leg to get that across. And also the other area is, of course, your back. Now, when you look at all these workouts that are online, a lot of them will have the plank in it, or a lot of sit-up exercises, and not enough on your back. Now, swimming, you're arching your back for a breaststroke, butterfly, and freestyle, you're holding yourself very flat in the water. Backstroke, you're resting a bit on the water, but the power is coming right across your back as you're pushing. So I recommend you do a good number of back exercises, whether they're back arches, whether they're flutter kick on your back, kicking your legs up. So you're keeping your glutes and your hamstrings, your hamstrings really kind of in good shape. Finally, the bit that people forget is if you're doing 3,000 meters, that's 140 turns. Now that's a lot of turning. And what you'll find is when you go back, if you do decent turns, you'll start to get cramp in your calf muscles because they're not used to the little jump you have at the end on the turn. And literally, a turn is like a little jump, isn't it? And so what I highly recommend is you do some, if you want to be really, really energetic, burpees, you know, the push up with a jump on it, and do a fair number of those, or just small jumps where you're just jumping in the air and you're keeping the legs really in good shape for every turn that you have. Now, I don't know how my timekeeping is on this, but I hope that that's given you some ideas, because what it is fitting into your life and making it special for you. And if you're sitting at a desk all day, you can do a little bit of isometric work while you're sitting at the desk, turn off the video, hang on, I'll do it just now, and you can just do a few exercises, because swimming is about repetition. It's a lot of turns of the arm, and even simple things like turning your arms here to get your shoulders going. You can do this, and after a minute, let me tell you, you start to get a little bit of a feeling that the muscles are working out. And in fact, can we try this now? Why not? We'll leave on this. Come on, let's stand up and do it. And then let's just go forward here and have a little swim here. There we go. Can you feel the shoulders? After just a few seconds, they're going there. And of course, if you really want to do that awful stroke where you can't see where you're going, you can do a bit of backstroke as well. Thank you very much for listening to me. Keep wet, go in the bath, and do try some of these exercises.
Duncan, thank you very much. I thought they were brilliant examples of very simple, easy to access. You don't need necessarily specialist equipment. They're easily adaptable if people are less mobile or have got are less able to do so. So thank you very much. Remember, if you've got any questions, please pop them in the Q&A section at the bottom of the screen, and Duncan can go through those while he's listening to others as well. Right, over to Keri-anne Payne. Keri-anne, thank you very much for joining us today.
My absolute pleasure. I have to kind of just give you a tiny bit of warning that if anybody that has kids knows that this has happened before, is that something came home from nursery. So I am solo parenting my child whilst my husband is struggling, shall we say, downstairs feeling a bit sick. Anyway, thank you very much, Duncan, for that. Obviously great. Again, some really sound advice there from Duncan. So Andrew, just kind of butt in, because I can talk about swimming forever when my time is up. But essentially, this is a strange time for everyone, and it's not even the first time that we're saying that. This is the second time that we're saying this kind of stuff. So what I wanted to kind of talk a little bit about is around how we can try and keep motivated. And I think the stuff that Duncan was saying was really helpful, and he totally stole some of the things that I was going to say anyway, but I'll kind of keep going on a few other things. But one thing that is really important that's going to help you feel ready to get back into the water is that core strength that Duncan was telling you about. If you haven't ever really worked on it before, now is such a great time to work on it. And like he was saying, working on your front, but also working on your back. So making sure that when you are going to do some core exercise, and it doesn't need to be a lot, it means maybe 5, maybe 10 minutes a day, not even 10 minutes, 5 minutes a day would be a really great start between now until you can get back into the water. So things like doing all the different types of variations of sit-up. Start with whatever feels right for you, whether it's just a sit up to your knees, whether it's a sit up all the way through your legs and into touching your toes, whether it's holding up halfway and doing what we call penguins, where you hold up a little bit and you go from side to side, because that's going to work for your obliques, the side muscles. And then turning onto your front and always finishing off with some back raises is one thing that I would always do as a back exercise, essentially, is working on some back raises. The other thing that you can do whilst you're waiting for the kettle to boil, or whilst you're watching the adverts on I'm a Celebrity, Get Me Out of Here, or something along those lines, is essentially to do something called a Superman, which is the opposite way around to what Duncan was talking about when you're lying on your back. So imagine you're on your knees and on your front, so you're on all fours, and we're doing opposites. As he said, we're going opposites to side, because that's going to help us work through the center line of our body, through the core and the front and the back. And essentially it's called Superman for a reason. One arm would be going out whilst the opposite leg is going out and behind you, and then coming back, and then the opposite side as well. The slower you can do that, the better that's going to be for you, because it's going to really work on stabilizing all those little core muscles. Now, the reason why our core is really important and really helpful for us when we're swimming is that it helps to control the feelings whilst we're swimming. So I'm talking specifically now, I guess, about freestyle and about backstroke as such. So if you've ever, maybe you're learning how to swim freestyle, or you haven't quite managed to figure out how to get your breath in properly, or you can't quite breathe bilaterally, so breathing one way and then being able to breathe the other side, a lot of the time it's down to not having a strong enough core that helps people to feel stable in that scenario. So the reason why lots of swimmers look so effortless when they do that is because we've worked a really long time on stabilizing ourselves in the water. And that, again, that's where that core will come in handy. For the breaststroke and the butterflies, your core will come in handy because, like Duncan said, you're going to be lifting yourself out of the water. And anytime that our body goes from being in a flat position to that position pushing against the water, it's going to feel really hard. So good core is going to help us to be able to lift up, to get the breath and come back into that really great body position. So the core really is a very important piece to swimming, and it's certainly something that you guys can be working on now. And another great thing with that is that it's going to help you to kind of start getting a little bit fitter, a little bit stronger as well. So that's the first part of that. The next part I wanted to talk about is around mentality. This year really has changed what a lot of people were hoping that they were going to do through the year when it comes to swimming goals and swimming examples and things that they were hoping that they might be able to do. And that's okay. Things changed for everyone. Everyone's in the same boat. Now, what I would suggest is, certainly as the pools have been shut for a fair amount of time this year, next year we can still plan goals. We can still get ready to take on new challenges and do new things. It's just about potentially changing the goalposts a little bit, or really thinking about what is it that you would love to do and what month would you love to do that. So I would aim for something kind of summertime as an example, and then kind of work yourself backwards. What is it that you need to have in place and ready in order to take that on? Now, I'm going to go a little bit technical here, but I think it's something, again, a lot of these things we can work on now whilst we're not actually in the pool. So there's 4 things that need to be in place, essentially, for us to have a really good performance. So I'm definitely going down my Olympic route now. Sorry, Josephine, I'll just be 2 minutes. Sorry. And the 4 things are, the first one is physical. What are all the physical things that we need in order to be ready to take on that challenge? So physically, obviously, if we're going to take on a marathon swim as an example, we would need to be able to know that we could swim 10,000 meters. We would need to be fit enough in order to do that. So all the cardiovascular system, sorry, Josephine, okay, you take the pen, on you go, sorry, she's 2 years old and she really doesn't understand Zoom. She thinks everyone wants to talk to her. So the physical stuff, again, it's the cardiovascular system. So what can you be doing at home now? That's, maybe that's some running, maybe it's some walking, some cycling, some fit workouts that you can kind of, really get your cardiovascular system working. That's going to help you be physically ready. We then move across to technically. So what are all the things that you technically need to have in place in order to take on that challenge? So right now, this is going to be a little bit of a challenge when it comes to the swimming side of things, because we can't get into the water to work on our technique. But that doesn't mean that we can't read up about it. It doesn't mean that we can't learn how to do things a little bit better. I would, however, say don't go direct to YouTube. There are a lot of videos out there on YouTube, and a lot of them are, I'm going to say it, dreadful, absolutely dreadful. Don't, just because someone has a million views on how to breathe for front crawl doesn't mean that that's the best way to do it. So make sure you're looking at the GLL websites, looking at the places that are reputable information that you can get some information from. So there's also technical stuff that you can work on at home, like your core. That's a really good technical thing for you to start working on, as well as a bit of a strength thing and a physical thing there as well. So 2 things for you to work on. We then need to work on mental, psychological stuff. So what are the things that are going to get in your way in order to prepare yourself to take on that challenge? So I'm going to use the marathon swim as an example. It's a long way. I'm not going to lie. I've done many of them. It's a long way, but it's an amazing challenge. It is something that you can absolutely prepare for and something that you can do. It's just going to take some time. So I would say building up to 10,000 meters over a week is going to be a great starting point for you to get to. How close and how quickly can you get to doing 10,000 meters in a week? Obviously, there'll be a challenge with only being able to swim for 50 minutes. But again, we all like a challenge. So it's definitely something that we can prepare for. Also, the other things that might get in your way might be work commitments, life commitments, anything else that you might be feeling like you're struggling a little bit with. So anything psychological in there, what is it that you can do now in order to help you prepare for that, those challenges? It's worth sitting down with a bit of paper and just thinking about all these things as we go through. And the final box, the last thing for us to think about is tactics. Now, again, this has very much come from my Olympic days, but still very much an important part of being prepared to take on challenges. So one of the things would be, how will you take on the challenge? What are the things that you're going to need? So I'm going to use now an open water event as an example. Just one second. So is using an open water example. And that would be, if you're going to take on an open water swim for the first time, I'm so sorry, for the first time, do you have a wetsuit? Does it fit you well? What does a fit look like when it comes to a proper wetsuit? Are you going to start at the front? Are you going to start in the middle? Are you going to start at the back of the swim? All these different things need to be considered. Again, let's use the marathon swim as an example in the pool. How are you going to start your first 400 meters? How are you going to start your first 50 meters? How are you going to take on the middle bit that you think you might find the hardest? What are you going to do on your last few lengths? There's a lot of stuff for us to think about tactically, again, that can help us take on these challenges, whether that challenge is learning how to do front crawl, or whether it's learning or being able to swim 10,000 meters in the pool. So there are plenty of things for us to work on, but those 4 things are really a great chance now, whilst we're at home, we don't have access to all the things we want to, we all pretty much have to stay at home on the weekend, just sit down with a bit of paper, get those 4 boxes and go, right, what do I need to have in place physically to take on this challenge? Tactically, technically, and psychologically, what are all those things that need to be in place, and start ticking them off. And that is exactly how I used to prepare my 4-year season in order to be ready to take on an Olympic swim. Andrew, how am I doing for time?
You're doing absolutely fine for time. You've got a little bit longer if you want to expand on any points, and as long as your childcare situation allows you to.
Yeah, again, I really apologize for that, but thank you very much for dealing with the odd hello here and there. Yeah, so again, when it comes to, I guess, maybe changing the goalposts, again, it's worth just thinking about the stuff that we can control and not worrying about the things that we can't control. So when you're sitting down and you're working on those 4 elements that we talked about, do another little box on each one of them and go, what's within my control with this and what's without my control? At the moment, we have no idea what is going to happen in January. We have no idea what's going to happen in February. What we do know is that I can prepare myself in February to make sure that I have this, and this in place. That's maybe some pool related stuff. That's maybe some open water related stuff. That's maybe some fitness stuff at home that you can be doing. That's reading some books that are going to help you be prepared. That kind of stuff. You can start to really take control. And again, the more we spend time working on the uncontrollables, the things that we can't control, it really saps and takes away all of our energy. And that is not going to help you be excited and ready to take on your next challenge. It's just going to drain you, and it's going to make you feel like you don't want to do it, or that worst case scenario that you feel like you can't do it. But by focusing on the controllables and doing everything that you can within your control to be ready to take on whatever challenge it is that you're doing, that is ultimately going to make you feel ready and actually be ready, not just feel ready, but physically be ready to take on that challenge whenever it comes. Now, there might be some of you out there thinking, I have no idea, I'm not interested in doing a challenge, I'm just interested in getting back into the pool. And that's totally fine as well. Not everyone's going to have a challenge forevermore. I'm going to use myself as a perfect example. I had trained 10 sessions every week pretty much for most of my life. And when I retired from competitive swimming, I didn't have a goal. I don't have a goal. I don't really have any challenges and things to take on. But for me, I kind of do, I guess, in a certain respect, because I'm starting to find slightly different challenges. So what I'm aiming to do for the rest of this year is to do some dipping, which is the only way I could describe it, which is some cold water swimming through the winter in safe places, obviously, in order to do that. But I can't go to the venue that I wanted to go to right now because it's shut. So what I am doing is taking control of what I can and basically having cold showers, which sounds awful. I must admit, it's certainly a challenge the first few times I tried it, but that cold water invigoration for me in the shower is giving me very similar feelings to what I would be when I was in the lake. So I'm not losing the opportunity to carry on with the acclimatization of swimming through the winter, but I'm taking control of a situation. And it really, the day that I decided, right, I'm going to turn this shower down to the bottom, it really gave me such a massive boost because I was in control of that and I chose to do that thing. So thinking about what's within your control and what's out within your control, and then basically trying to forget about the stuff you can't control for now. And when they come back into your control, then you add them back in, but just focus on what it is that you can do right now to keep you physically, mentally, tactically, and psychologically ready to take on whatever challenge it is that you have coming up. There you go. I see that there are some questions, but I haven't been able to read them just yet. I don't know if they're maybe for Duncan.
I think there's probably one for you, Keri-anne. Just somebody's asking, are there any books you'd recommend to read, or any autobiographies?
Thanks, Keri-anne.
Yes, so there are, I'm just actually in the process of rereading a book called Leap In, which is a fantastic story about somebody's journey, a lady called Alexandra Hemsley, and it was her journey about getting into swimming. And actually, I'm sure that there will be some people who read that and think, wow, that's exactly me. And I can't believe that that's, someone's actually been able to articulate how I'm feeling when it comes to that sort of stuff. But that's a really good book, and I'd certainly recommend that's one to be reading right now. At the moment, it's a really fascinating, wonderful, heartwarming story, which I think is kind of what we need at the moment, if I was to recommend a book right now.
Thank you very much. We'll come back and do some questions and answers at the end. And you can go and make sure Josephine's got what she needs.
Okay, I'll also turn my camera off so you don't have to watch me running around after her. But I'll be here.
Very simple bite-sized chunks for people to follow. So it's really, really good. I like the stuff about controlling the things that you can and focus on core strength. So right now I'm going to hand you over to Andrew Taylor, who's our national tutor, and he's going to give you some insight into where to go online to find out some of these techniques, which is a lot of the questions have come through asking that. So over to you, Andrew.
Thanks, Andrew. Like Keri-anne said, and she alluded to, there is so much information out there, and it can be very difficult sometimes to think, well, what is the sort of best place to go for the technique? And it is very much that you can go onto YouTube and you can Google and you can try and find stuff. And again, there's different opinions, different techniques. I think depending on sort of what level of swimmer you are can sort of depend upon what sort of references you can sort of go to. It kind of, again, I've tried to put on the screen, I've got some links that we'll share afterwards, but as a swimming geek, I would always sort of go to SwimSwam. That's where I would normally go to find out sort of what's happening at the elite level and understand they've got a great page on there for sort of drill of the month, which is really good if you want to see actually how can I add in some variety to what I'm doing. You've then got places like Outdoor Swimmer, which you may be thinking, well, I maybe don't swim outdoors. I'm not like Keri-anne. I'm up for a very warm shower and getting in a warm pool. Not the biggest fan of going out into lakes, but it still has a lot of really useful information on there to do with, again, whether you want to start out sort of as a swimmer and can build your fitness up, but also if you want to understand, okay, how can I improve my front crawl breathing or improve sort of my breaststroke technique. Somewhere again that if you're thinking from a real beginner point, there's a really useful link on the swimming website which talks through basically building a fitness plan from somebody that you may have not gone to the pool for a very long time, and it sort of builds up over a number of weeks, sort of really basic sets that you can start with. So again, that link's there to sort of help anybody that's wanting to start that journey. Speedo as well as Arena have got some great videos on there. Again, a lot of this is to do with sort of drills and activities, especially to do using new equipment. If you're not familiar with using things like finger paddles or using a snorkel for the first time, or even putting on a wetsuit for the first time if you're an open water swimmer, there's loads of useful videos that on all these websites that can really help you if you want to just explore and expand what you can actually do in the pool. Your swimming book or your swimming log, again, it was just something that I used back in the days of actually writing down all my sessions. But again, they've got some useful information on there to do with like different sets. So if you are wanting to do some sprint sets or you wanting to work on sort of aerobic fitness, it's got some examples on there. Now with all of these, they are kind of more tailored towards the more advanced swimmers. But what you can always do is think, well, actually, you can take a set, you can play around with the distances, you can play around with the rest periods, so that again you can make them a little bit more achievable if you're not quite at the sort of elite level that some of these are pushed towards. Just having a look at the Arena Swim, that's a great blog on there that's got some again really good information that you can take into the pool yourself. But also there's lots of things on there linking to what both Keri-anne and Duncan have talked through already in terms of what you can do outside of the pool. And again, sort of how you can refocus yourself for when the pools do reopen. Places like 220 Triathlon and Global Triathlon Network, again, you may be thinking, well, I'm not a triathlete, but again, there's things on there to do with sort of training and improving your fitness in the pool, especially if you are going towards a challenge for 2021. It's got some sort of key training plans that can help you if you are starting out and trying to build to those larger distances. Somewhere for sort of videos and really clear sort of up-to-date and accurate techniques is Effortless Swimming. Some really clear, and again, it can get quite geeky in terms of the swimming technical knowledge, but again, if you want to explore how you can improve your own technique and sort of use some of the drills that are taught on there, you can replicate in the pool no matter what sort of ability you are. One place again that I would say to go and explore is probably on Instagram. Just search on Instagram, just put in sort of swimming or training tips and have that link to sort of your stories. And again, somebody like Keri-anne is a great person to follow on there because again, she puts sort of interesting tips on that. But again, there's so much on there that all I would say is go onto one of these websites, sort of have a look at what works for you and then sort of go from there. Something that we're going to do as better is that we're going to start to put out there more sort of training plans for different ability levels. We understand that, again, for some people it might be more about just improving your fitness and mobility rather than necessarily training towards an event. So I'm going to work with some of our swim Dr. Elves, I think a few on the webinar today, to get some of those sessions posted for December. So each week we'll have sort of like for a beginner, sort of improver and advanced swimmer, some just really basic sort of technique and fitness sessions that we can offer you guys to be able to have a go at in the pool when we do reopen. So the second part that Andrew asked me to talk about is how do you make the most out of 50-minute swims? And again, 50 minutes is a bit of a weird number. Again, we've worked really hard as an industry to make our pools COVID secure. And in order to do that, that's just one of the results of how we've had to set up is that our sessions are 50 minutes long. But how can you make the most out of that time you've got in the pool? And what I tried to think about was what do I sort of do when I go to the pool and what sort of top tips can I share with all of you? So I think reiterating what Keri-anne was just talking about, know what your goal is. I think when you go to the pool and you know what that goal is, whether it's the first time you might be getting in after a number of months not swimming, or whether you're working towards marathon swims for next year or swimathon, whatever your goal is, have that in the back of your mind, and that's going to help you sort of tailor every session to ensure you get the most out of that 50 minutes. Think about the plans that you're going to do. When I say plans, I don't mean like a big long session plan. If you're like me, you've got a rubbish memory, even just writing down a post-it and just putting onto a bottle what you want to do for that session can really, really help. And I think the big thing is thinking about what can you realistically achieve in 50 minutes. It's not about trying to sort of just swim down constantly because you're not always going to get the correct technique within that. Also, again, it's just thinking about, okay, do I have all my equipment? Do I know which lane I'm going to go into? Again, if you've not gone swimming for quite a while and going maybe to a new pool, it's just, again, finding out a little bit about it so that, again, when you turn up, you can make the most out of the slot that you do have. We talk a lot about being pool ready, and again, that's a big part that if you can arrive pool ready, you can utilise the time you've got at the centres as much as you can. In terms of your timings, just because you've got 50 minutes doesn't mean that you should just go straight in and just be plowing up and down. Still think of it as those key aspects of a good training session. The warm-up for me is still the key thing that, again, I'm guilty as charged, that I'll get in and just get straight on with the set I want to be doing, but actually that's not good for preparing my body for getting back into the water, especially considering all of us have probably been out of the water for a good 4 weeks by the time you can get back in December. So think about giving yourself sort of 5 to 10 minutes for that warm-up, even if it's just reducing the speed or sort of the effort level that you put in there. Think about how you're going to do the warm-up and what sort of suitable warm-up activities you could be doing. If you are thinking about sort of, again, sort of more advanced swimmer, what you can do for your pre-main is going to sort of prep you for doing that set. Again, think about, you've got about 25 to 30 minutes to be doing your main activity. And then again, don't forget your cool down activities, sort of 10 minutes to make sure that you're stretching your body out. Again, making sure that you're sort of bringing heart rate back down. All these things are important, even though you've only got 50 minutes in the water. You can still achieve a lot in that time. I know Keri-anne's a big believer in this as well, but quality over quantity. Even if you're working towards something like marathon swims and over a long distance, 10,000 meters or 5,000 meters is a very long way to be swimming with poor technique. And what you should be doing is using these sessions to build up that correct technique and ensure that, again, that you're not going to end up creating any potential injuries that, again, is going to potentially impact you working towards your goal. Think about, again, the type of sessions that you're going to be doing. And again, sometimes doing simple things like ensuring that, okay, in this 50 minutes, I'm going to make sure on every single turn, I'm going to hold streamline, adding maybe 2 or 3 dolphin leg kicks. I'm maybe not going to breathe on the first stroke out of my turn. Things like that actually can be just as tiring and just as beneficial as getting in the distance. Sometimes the distance isn't the end goal. It's actually how well did you swim the amount of lengths and meters that you achieve. Rest periods, again, just because you've got 50 minutes doesn't mean it's just be straight in and go 50 minutes flat. Yes, if you get to that point where you're building up towards a long distance event, you're going to have to get used to swimming continuously without those rest periods. But again, to start with, think about, okay, I'm only going to sell 10 seconds, 15 seconds, 20 seconds, 30 seconds, whatever it might be, but think about those intervals, because again, it's going to help you sort of build back your fitness, especially when you've not been in the water for a number of weeks. In terms of, again, making the most out of the sessions, think about your focus days. We talk about with Swim Doctor, we always sort of have our Technique Tuesdays and Fitness Fridays. Again, each day of the week, depending on how many times you're going to be swimming, think about actually, how do I make sure that I'm going to not get bored when I'm getting in the pool again? How to make sure I make it interesting? And again, having that clear focus can really help. And again, we'll be sharing some of those sort of Technique Tuesdays and Fitness Fridays for those sessions via the better social media. And the last one is sort of variety. Even if you're working towards a particular goal, and again, something that maybe is an open water swimmer and doing long distances, you're always going to be focused more on freestyle. But I'm a big believer in that, again, as Duncan was talking about in terms of the different strokes, they all link together, and using the core strength. If you can build up your core strength by doing a little bit of dolphin leg kick work, if you can again use the variety and add in a little bit of breaststroke and backstroke, it can have a really positive impact on your sort of fitness for freestyle. Again, think about the equipment that you're using. Again, as long as you're using equipment with purpose, again, there's no point having something if it's not going to have that impact. And thinking about the particular drills which can help you sort of focus on a particular area you think you need to improve on, especially when you're looking at how you can make the most out of that time. So some of the links on here we will share via our social media, so that you've got these to go back to as well as the recording. But again, there is so much information out there. It's just about finding what works best for you. And like we said, we'll do what we can to share sort of best practice from our Swim Doctor hours.
Thank you, Andrew. Great stuff. Lots of reference points there for people to follow. And as Andrew said, we'll circulate those to the people that registered on the list. I'm going to hand you now over to Diccon Loy. And Diccon worked with for a number of years. But when he came to us 3 years ago asking to do a 10,000 metre event in a pool and said that lots of people would want to do it, I thought he was slightly bonkers, but he wasn't. It's been a great success. So over to you, Diccon.
Thank you, Andrew. No, very, very much appreciated. I don't know about if anyone else, but the sort of advice so far is all centered around, or a lot of it is centered around your core. And every time it's mentioned, I tend to sit up a little bit straighter. But no, it's also fantastic to be joined by Duncan and Keri-anne. And I've known and worked with Duncan for years and years, and I've had the pleasure of meeting Keri-anne a couple of times. But one thing that always sort of jumps out in my mind is that at one point in time, Keri-anne and Duncan were the best and fastest swimmers on the planet. That to me is amazing. 7 billion people, and they are the quickest. They've had the most dedication, the most training, the most ability to come out on top. And I think that you know, is just absolutely amazing. But but we're alike. There's a lot in common. So there's a lot in common with Duncan and Keri-anne's journey as to our own. And one of the things I'm going to be focusing on in the next 5 minutes or so is the power of events. So Keri-anne and Duncan had certain events that they were building their training up to. So in Keri-anne's case, it would have been the Worlds and the Olympic Games 2008 and 2012. For Duncan, 76 Olympics in Montreal and 1980 in Moscow. Those were the sort of key points within their sporting career that they built up to. And the same can be for ourselves. You know, it's events are all about getting that date in the diary, maybe 6 months time, maybe a year, 18 months time, where you build up your journey, build up your training and preparation to then go and achieve. And you see it as well, that the similarities. So you'll have seen so many Olympians, all when they come back from the games, they've got a certain tattoo on their arm or thigh or wherever, the Olympic rings. But you see that in everyday world as well, where people have got the M. Which is the Ironman logo tattooed, or Tough Mudder tattooed, their logo tattooed on them. And these are commercial logos that people have chosen to permanently mark their bodies with. And you don't get that with Nike, or you don't get that with Coca-Cola, but people feel so strongly and so proud of their achievement in an event that they spend their own money on permanently tattooing their body with something they're really, really proud of. So I think, yeah, Duncan and Keri-anne are amazing, but there's a lot that we can take from them and apply to our own journey. And that's probably where I started with marathon swims. So as Andrew kindly said, that I came to them with a pitch, and I'm really thankful for Andrew and Emma for, that they got it instantly and bought into the idea instantly, which was fantastic. But one of the key things was that in the sport of swimming, outside of swimming for clubs and in masters groups and outside of open water swimming, there was very little, if anything, in the pool that the everyday swimmer could do. Okay, so if you were into swimming and into club structures, you could, go and compete 50 meters to probably 400, 800 if you're lucky at different events. But for the everyday swimmer, there was very little outside of swimathon. So what we set out to do was to create the London Marathon of swimming. We wanted swimming to have its own marathon. And the real point of inspiration was Keri-anne's race in Beijing, which was the first time in 2008 that the open water 10K marathon was part of the games. So we took that idea, reinvented it for the pool environment, and then we've gone on to to the success we have. We didn't want people to swim up and down the same lane. We wanted chip timing, so results were instant and reliable, and you swim up and down lane 1, move into lane 2, all the way to lane 10, get out, your time is recorded, you come through transition and then back for your second K and then your third K, etc. So that's how it works. And we've been hosted at the London Aquatic Centre for the last 3 years, and it's been absolutely fantastic. This year, obviously, the event couldn't happen as we'd planned. So it was planned in for a couple of weeks ago, 7th to the 8th of November. Unfortunately, it couldn't happen. But what we decided to do, we didn't want just to leave it there. We wanted to provide an event to keep people motivated and inspired. So we created the Marathon Swims Virtual Challenge, and of which I've got the 2 medals here, all ready to be given out. So one is for the Marathon 10K, and the other is for the Marathon Swims Virtual Challenge Ultra Marathon 25K. So the challenge here, we adapted the challenge to say, right, well, rather than do the event at an actual event, you could do it anywhere. And you've got 30 days to complete your marathon swim, whether it's the Marathon 10K or Ultra Marathon 25K. So that was the plan, and it went absolutely brilliantly. We were on track to get more swimmers in the virtual event than we had originally planned to host at the Aquatic Centre, which was fantastic. But then obviously 4 days in, the pool's shut. Well, the pool's shut in England. So we have had some people finish the challenge so far. There's been about 20, 30 finished so far already, but it's not to worry. It was due to end the end of November. We've just moved it to the end of December. So the challenge will still be live. You can have 30 days to swim either Marathon 10K or the Ultra Marathon 25K. And by the way, Ultra Marathon 25K is the most popular. So that's what we've done. We've also spent this time, when we haven't been delivering events, thinking about next year. So the plan is very much to go back to the Aquatic Centre. We want to replicate the virtual challenge for open water in the summer, and we're going to be hosting some other events around the country as well. So more to come from us. But what has been great in terms of the Marathon Swims Virtual Challenge is it's attracted a whole new audience. So about 60% of the participants weren't known to us before. These are people who've got engaged in swimming, want to do something, want to end 2020 on a high by achieving a goal, and hopefully, one of these medals will be in the post very, very soon for the completion of their challenge. But events in general, and well, hopefully swimming events as well, can have a huge impact on people's motivations, because they are the point in the diary and that point of focus that you build up to and train to. So even though we can't swim now, my advice would be for you guys to research different events you want to do, and maybe plan next year as well. So next year's plan could be marathon swims at the London Aquatic Centre in November. You might want to plan some other events in the summer, maybe some open water swims. It might involve swimathon earlier in the year, maybe some swim doctor sessions as well to help fine-tune your technique. But use this time when we're not swimming to look to next year, plan out your year, and really aim for those things that you want to do and you want to achieve, whether it's getting the marathon swims medal or completing a distance that you've never done. And who knows, one of you might even get a marathon swims tattoo on your body as well. Who knows? But yeah, so use events and use this time to plan your swims.
Thanks, Diccon. That's really great. And I think the really interesting thing when I came to see the event for the first time was just the different all ages, all abilities that were taking part in the event. There were some people that were taking it really seriously and going for the fastest time. Some people just saw it as an endurance event and I'm just going to get through it before the day is over. But you also had the team challenge as well. So I quite like that, doing 1,000 meters and then getting out and watching someone else do it and then getting back in again. So it's probably a good point to bring Duncan back in here and just talk about swimathon and swimathon as an event and how many people sort of swimathon has engaged over the years in getting people swimming more regularly.
Well, I mean, swimathon's been fantastic, and I was really fortunate to be involved pretty much right at the beginning. And it was the time when the London Marathon had really succeeded in the 80s, and swimming had no way of promoting itself and driving itself. So the initial kind of thought behind swimathon is, during the winter months when people don't use the pools very often, how can we encourage them to train and be in the water more regularly? And so Swimathon was set up, and it's basically a challenge. You pick the challenge. It's got a variety of different challenges. You can do it as an individual or all by yourself. And 200 lengths, the average pool, 5,000 meters is the largest challenge. Of course, some people do the event several times to build up, so they do much more than that. Over the years, it's been the most phenomenal force for good, because not only has it had 750,000 swimmers taking part in it, and each year it's usually 600 pools taking part, so it gives you an idea how big it is. It's the largest event of its kind in the world by a long stretch. The other part of it is that our swimmers, and I'm sure some of you have taken part, thank you very much, well done, have raised a staggering 54 million, over 54 million pounds for charity. So that's been absolutely wonderful. And the Swimathon Foundation, who owns it, are really, really keen in I suppose, investing back into swimming as well. And I was just thrilled when we started talking around an idea of helping swimming clubs. And recently they've just helped a whole range of swimming clubs through COVID. So that's what they do. And then, of course, we have our main charities, Marie Curie and Cancer Research UK, which at the moment are desperate for money. And our swimmers have been brilliant. So if you're one of them, thank you very much. They carried on. They stuck with us, even though the event had to be effectively cancelled. And we put a virtual swim in My Swimathon. And I'm happy to report that 18,000 people took part over September, and over £1 million has been raised. And that £1 million has been a godsend to the charities. So thank you very much for that. And I hope you'll join us again in the pool to compete in it next year. And along Keri-anne's comments, if you do have something in the diary, it does focus your mind. You get sweaty palms, and let me tell you, everybody loves it. So don't be shy, sign up, and there's a distance that will suit you, and you'll find that you'll make friends. And as Dickon says, the medal does count. It's a great thing to receive. Here's mine, by the way, here, my Swimathon medal.
Great, thank you. Thank you, Duncan. I think it's a good time to ask you the other question that popped up in the chat box there of why aren't you still competing?
I'll leave it to people like Keri-anne Payne, although I think she's not competing any longer. I mean, I'm 63 years old. I'm so old I had to think about that. And so my life goal is to, what am I doing in my life to improve the chances of my tying my shoelaces when I'm 95 years old? And so I pick challenges and things to do that will help me on that challenge. But I did read the other day how perhaps I'd have to readjust my my goal because somebody who is now 104 years old learned how to swim when he was 85, then got involved in masters, became world record holder by the time he was 90, got the world records up to 100, and he was hoping to survive until he was 105. He said he was a bit poorly, but just getting in the pool would be a world record at 105 and competing. And he'd got the 100 to 105. So obviously tying my shoelaces at 90, 95 is not ambitious enough.
And you've never fancied doing masters swimming, Duncan?
I did a bit of masters swimming, but it always reminds me of the Far Side calendar, which I don't know if you've seen this American calendar. It has a moose on it, and it's got a kind of target on it. And one of the guys out shooting says, because it's like this birthmark is a bummer of a birthmark, Hal. You do feel target, and as I say, I want to enjoy my swimming, so I take part in swimathon. I've gone one stage further in Keri-anne. Because I open water swim throughout the winter in the Serpentine, and that's my kind of competition. Can I keep on going? I shower outside with a garden hose, Keri-anne. Get real, get tough on it. My neighbours are barking mad, by the way, but there we go. But that's one of the things I do to get through this stage of how do you keep exhilarated? How do you feel the water? How do you do something a little different in your life?
Okay, and a question to you, but also any of the other panelists that want to put their hand up. Any advice for older swimmers, those that aren't maybe looking to take on 5,000 or 10,000 meters, but just 1,000 meters at one point? Any advice for them?
I think it's just pick a challenge that you're comfortable with, and make sure that you can succeed. So, test yourself a little bit and enjoy it. And, put the workouts in the diary so you keep to them. And you'll be surprising, how often you'll go down to the pool and not feel like it, and then get to the end and feel great as a consequence. You really should be working on the basis after exercise you have more energy. And it's something my wife always says to me. She said, how comes when I exercise I have more energy? Well, we have so many hunter-gatherer hormones in us that when we exercise, of course, our bodies become better at what they do, and so do our minds.
Okay, great. Thanks, Duncan. Go on, Diccon.
Yeah, just on the older swimmer thing, I think, first of all, events such as marathon swims and swimathon are for everybody. And you don't need to worry on marathon swims in terms of being overtaken constantly, because we move you into waves depending on your speed. But every year so far, one swimmer in particular has competed, and last year she was 87. And even at 87, she was still beating the majority of other swimmers in her category. She did amazingly at the 1K. But also a lot has been spoken about strategy. And one swimmer sticks in mind from last year. She absolutely focused on completing the marathon 10K, but she had a strategy. She wasn't a quick swimmer by any means. But her strategy was to do a kilometre, and after every kilometre, got out, had a hot shower, dried off, put a dry robe on, had some food, sat down, chatted to her friends, waited half an hour, then got back in. Did that constantly. Took her over 8 hours to complete the 10K, but, absolutely brilliant. She did it, she completed it. So it's all about strategy and perspective, I think. So.
And is it too late to join the virtual challenge, Diccon?
No, you can still enter, absolutely. So the challenge goes on until the end of December. So it finishes midnight, 31st of December. If lockdowns continue locally or nationally, we'll just move it to the end of January. But the challenge is 30 days to complete your marathon swim. So whether it's December or if we have to January, you can do it. But no, absolutely still open.
And Keri-anne, you wanted to jump in?
Yeah, I definitely wanted to add, I did add a little comment in to that question before about the slightly older swimmers. One other thing I would definitely say is it's so worth finding someone to help you. Oh, sorry. It's so worth finding someone to help you work on your technique. So finding a coach is going to be a really great way of doing that, whether that's a swim doctor, because a lot of people either learned how to swim when they were kids, either when they were maybe at school, or they were part of swim clubs when they were kids and haven't swum for years and they got back into it as an adult. So one thing I would definitely say, is finding a coach is going to be a really helpful way to give you the confidence in the technique that you're doing, that it's right. And they'll also be able to give you some pointers in the training sessions that you might be thinking, you should be thinking about potentially doing as well. So it's worth definitely looking maybe for a swim doctor session or doing some research on some local swimming coaches close to you, because even within one session, you can see amazing differences, whether it's just helping someone learn how to breathe properly or helping with someone's technique to tweak something as well as they go through. It definitely will make quite a big difference. So that's just one other thing I would definitely add into all of those equations, is see if you can find someone to help you. Even just one session can make a massive difference.
Okay, and while you're on, Keri-anne, someone's asked what's the best practice for improving your front crawl leg action whilst out in the water?
I was hoping you weren't going to ask me this question. It's a tricky one, and I have been thinking about that quite a lot whilst I've been, whilst everyone else has been talking. And I think the interesting thing with front crawl kick is a lot of people assume that it comes from the knee or it comes from the ankle, because a lot of people come from running backgrounds. But front crawl kick really comes from the hips. So one thing that might be useful to try and start getting used to that sort of feeling is actually lying on your front. Maybe on the bed or on the floor or something like that, and just get used to lifting your feet up just a small amount. So it's not a huge amount, because you will not be lifting your feet up out of the water behind you, but it just gives you an idea of what it feels like to kick from the hips as opposed to kicking from the knees. You'll be banging, if you're banging your knees on the floor first, then you know you're kicking from your knees. But if you can try and think about kicking from your hips, that will make a bit of a difference. And then you can kind of turn onto your back and do the same sort of thing. So just kicking from the hips again. If you see your knees moving first, you'll know that you're naturally a knee kicker, but it's trying to ultimately aim to kick from your hips. But I can see Duncan lifting his hand up. So maybe Duncan's got something else he can add to that as well. You're just on mute, Duncan. There you go.
There we go. It was exactly that. The videos that I've done on Swimathon Facebook are those early morning workouts in bed, and you can shift your weight so your legs are well off the bed, and you can actually assimilate very well. And if you actually put your hand on your bed head, so you've got your hand actually underneath the bed head a little bit, you can get a real feeling, because you can get across the body, that right across your body as well. And you can do it in different ways. If you have your body, your legs half off the bed, depending on how springy your bed is, you can actually use the bed as something to push against, and it will go down. So it will give you a much better example of how you do it. So you're actually lifting the weight of your leg up, and you're pushing against the bed down. So you're getting a real feeling of kick. And you can do that obviously on your front and back. And going back to what you were saying, Keri-anne, about workouts and engaging intellectually and almost emotionally and spiritually in water is really important. So many people say, oh, training is so boring, swimming training is boring. And I'm going, how can this be boring? It is, it's mind-bogglingly difficult, because when triathletes get in the pool, they're so funny. They're going, well, I'm swimming harder and I'm swimming slower, because they're used to running, which you run a bit harder and a bit faster, you get fitter. You run faster, you cycle a bit harder. You do that in the pool, and you're likely to go slower. So to me, it's every time I get in the pool, how can I get in a more streamlined position? How can I feel the water? How many strokes per length? The questions that you can ask yourself, and the little I suppose focuses that you can put on how you pull and where you pull from, and And each workout you can make a different focus. So these workouts then become something that absolutely you're in the here and now, and you're getting the real benefits of not only exercise but yoga, because swimming's where running meets yoga meets, I don't know, billiards, I don't know, whatever. It's got so much in it because it gives you so much. So please, I beg you all, think, engage, have fun, ask yourself questions and learn.
Great. And Andrew, I'm going to come to you on this one, but any advice for avoiding injuries when you return to swimming, when the pools do reopen, so that you don't overdo it when you first go back in?
Stretch. I think, as Duncan was saying earlier, it's all about, again, I read the one about the lady, she had that particular twinge on the back. I think it is, again, don't exert too much in the first session back. Do make sure that you've warmed up and you've stretched before you get in, and also post-swim, make sure you're doing your correct cool downs. Duncan, did you want to?
Yeah, I mean, to me, I kind of gone through several stages in swimming, and I hope you guys will engage with this, and I hope it will be another kind of question or idea in your mind, is how do I rediscover the feeling I got when I was a kid? You know, you watch kids getting into the water, and they just are so fascinated about the difference and how beautiful the water is. And they just, you know, you can see the joy and the excitement, the wonder. And to me, for you, getting back in, and I certainly did it when I got back in, the first few sessions weren't about working out. It was like rediscovering the beauty of what we had lost for the months we did Mabuza for, and just reveling in every part of it, to see if I could discover something I'd missed as a kid.
And we've also had a question about someone who's been sea swimming, Richard, who's been sea swimming 4 times a week during lockdown, and what will he see as a difference when he returns to the pool? Well, hopefully if you're in a better swimming pool, it will be a little bit warmer and a little bit less choppier and a little bit less saltier. But anything else, Keri-anne, you're probably well versed in outdoor swimming and swimming in the sea.
Yeah, sorry, I am just moving rooms now again. Yeah, so the difference will be the turning, really, that Duncan was talking about. So what you tend to feel when you're in the pool is that you get, I would say, sorry to say this out loud, Duncan, but you get a little rest every time you turn on the wall when you're not actually doing any swimming, whereas in the open water, you don't really get that opportunity to stop because there's no walls to push off on, or you can't really touch the bottom either. So you're doing a lot of sculling, you're doing a lot of treading water, you're swimming constantly. So what I tend to find is a lot of people feel much stronger actually when they get into the pool, because your muscles have had to work harder, your body's had to work a little bit harder to get you, to keep you going. So what I think you'll find in the pool, as Andrew was saying, it's probably cleaner, definitely warmer than I'm sure lots of places have been. Not that I'm saying that's any better, but anyway, definitely warmer, cleaner, and you should start to feel a little bit more, you should feel a little stronger. It might feel a bit easier in the pool because there's not as many elements for you to have to deal with. But the thing you might find a bit of a challenge, first of all, is just doing the tumble turns again, getting used to getting back into the swing of things, of turning at the wall each time.
Okay, thanks, Keri-anne. There's another question from Igor, and Andrew, you might be a good one to answer this one. In a busier pool, how to use the pool more efficiently, especially if you're trying to improve your pace?
Yeah, I was just thinking about this one. I think, again, it's sometimes taking that step. If you are in a busy lane, again, whether you can go into another lane, again, easier said than done. Some people are quite put off if they're in the medium lane, may not want to go into the fast lane, or in the fast lane and take that step and actually maybe I'm better going back into this lane. I think it's just about, again, what sets are you doing? Because again, if you're doing sort of 50-meter intervals or 100 meter, it might be actually increasing the distance and looking at, again, actually, can you sort of increase the speed when you're not at particular busy points? But it can be quite challenging. But I think talk to swimmers around you, because again, if you understand what the other swimmers in the lane are doing, you can sort of understand, okay, they're doing 50s or they're doing 100s, or this person's doing a mile swim continuously. It's much easier to understand and sort of know your position within the lane if you understand what everybody else is swimming. Duncan, if you want to start.
Yeah, I mean, depending on how busy the lane is one thing you do is if you've got nobody on your feet also, don't push off the wall. What you do is you start from a dead start. Don't push off the floor, because what you're doing is when you're starting from a dead start, you're using a lot of strength to pull through, and therefore you're tiring yourself out. You're working, maybe you're not going so far, but you're putting more effort into it. Another thing you can try is just stopping at the end and letting the person just have a bit of time. Again, if you've got nobody behind you, and just try and see if you can catch them up. So you're working harder rather than further. So you can use different circumstances in a pool in a very effective way. I also see a lot of people, thinking that they have to swim. They've only got an hour, they have to swim. Well, you can actually do a sprint kick for a few lengths, and you'll be just as tired, and your heart will get up to a range that you'll get probably puffing harder than you would be if you were swimming. So look at what you're doing and have different strategies. And Keri-anne made some very good points about the different strategies you can have, the bigger strategies, but have different ones for the pool as well, for different conditions.
Thanks, Duncan. I think we've covered off most of the questions now. I think there's a couple on the legality of pools having to close. So I'll cover that off now before we finish. But yeah, unfortunately, it was specifically named in the government guide. Sorry, Duncan, go on.
Sorry, Andrew. There was one about Lidos and stuff. It's all about people congregating at one point, and I think that's why they're relaxed about us swimming open water by ourselves, but not as a club or in one place.
So yeah, I think we firmly believe as an industry that we've done a good job in creating COVID secure venues, and anyone that uses our pools and has booked the slot, the trickle flow system seems to work. Our double lanes gives you a little bit more space. So we are lobbying hard to ensure that going forward, if we go into another lockdown, that hopefully swimming pools will be one of those areas that will be allowed to stay open, again, for individual access, for people to turn up singly on their own and undertake their exercise. We know how much it means to all of our customers. The ability to be able to get in the pool at least once a day makes a massive difference to people's lives and physical and mental well-being. So we are lobbying hard to do that. You can play your part by signing the petitions that are available online, and also write to your local MP. But let's keep our fingers crossed that we're allowed to open up in a few weeks' time and we can get back in the pools, and that if we do go into another lockdown period, that we can keep some of our facilities open for your benefit. So last but not least, thanks to all of our panel members today, Diccon, Andrew Taylor, Duncan Goodhew and Keri-anne Payne, and Josephine in the background. And thank you to all of our customers that have joined us online for this session. Hopefully we'll do another one leading up to the pool's reopening to really give you a bit of motivation to get back in the pool in December and to carry your swimming through to the new year. So after that, we will circulate some information online. Anything to add, Andrew?
No,
Come on,
go on, Duncan.
Just to pick up, it's really, really important that we all as swimming get together and make our voice heard. You may have seen several pieces I've done in the Telegraph, Metro and City AM, but there behind it is, Swim England is really, really vocal about this. 10% of pools in this country, 20% of pools, one in five, didn't open after the first lockdown, and a lot of them are unlikely to open. And it's time the government, it started investing in swimming. Just think about it. Some pools have a 3-year waiting list for Learn to Swim programs, and we've got a generation of kids who've missed out on Learn to Swim, and we've lost 20% of the pools. We need to be really vocal about how brilliant our sport is, what it does for us. and you can play a part in that. So I hope you will, because I don't know about you, I love it. And thank you, Andrew, for all you've done, because I know you're better. You're leading the industry on that.
Thank you, Duncan. And yeah, it's a really good point. Even if we are allowed to open, there are still some pools that are struggling to open across the UK, and people do need it. And whether that's kids learning to swim or people going for their daily dip. Thanks, Duncan, and thanks for your support today. Keri-anne, any final words from you?
No, just I hope that everyone can find something to take from today, even if it's just one thing, and just kind of start using that. Just control what you can control and don't worry too much about the other stuff for now. But, you know, as Duncan says, having one voice is going to be better. So if you can find the main petitions and things, then they're always going to be more helpful than creating new ones and finding out new things. But as Duncan says, the guys at Better are doing such a great job of that. So head over there, because I'm sure they'll share all the information that they need. But it's been a pleasure. Thank you very much for having me on today. And yeah, thanks for dealing with Josephine on the odd occasion. But I look forward to hopefully speaking to people again.
Thank you. And Diccon, any final words other than sign up for Marathon Virtual Challenge?
You took the words right out of my mouth. Yeah, even if it's not signing up, you can register your interest, just getting you ready. And it's for marathon swims, for swimathon. All swimming events and events in general need support as much as pools need support as well. So yeah, just get ready to plan next year. And yeah, let's hope we get back in the pool soon.
Thank you very much, Diccon. And Andrew, any final words?
No, just to say that we will share all the recording and all of the useful tips. And I think we've got a lot of requests for sort of some dry on exercises, so we'll be find the links through to what Duncan's already done, and also sharing sort of some other exercises that have been mentioned today. Great, thank you very much, and thank you for everyone that's that signed in today and registered and listened. Hopefully you got something out of it, and hopefully you'll join us again soon. Thank you.